Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're starting a brand new series here called Theorycraft Thursdays, and hopefully this will be a weekly series that will cover the game Total War Elysium. So Total War Elysium, for those of you who don't know, is a brand new collectible card game that is being made by Creative Assembly, the makers of the Total War franchise, that combines multiple Total War games in terms of the characters and elements presented in those games in the form of a card game. And previously I have done 3 separate videos introducing the game and some of the mechanics, and the closed beta has proceeded to the point where now there are no embargoes and it's open to the public. So if you want to request a beta key, please do so in the link below, and you can come in and join us playing the game. So today is actually quite a big day in the game. There was a huge update, we had a lot of card changes, and more importantly, to celebrate the upcoming launch of Total War Troy, Troy as a faction is being introduced into the game. So taking this opportunity for the start of this series, we're going to center our discussion, or Theorycraft, on Troy today, and the one general that was added in Agamemnon. So a little introduction about what I plan to do for Theorycraft Thursdays. So for the game, we can obviously showcase a lot of gameplay, and we're definitely going to do that in terms of just watching me play other people with the game, or as I have plans, I just want to do something a little fun with the game. But this here will be something more serious. It will be a slightly more hardcore discussion about gameplay mechanic and how the game is designed, and certain aspect like building your deck, or how a certain faction is designed to be played, and such. So taking this opportunity, since today is the brand new update, we'll be taking a look at Agamemnon. So here we are in game, and Agamemnon here is a mid-range character, means he is kind of a balanced playstyle. So he has good early, good mid, good late. There's no one focus that you have. So previously we did showcase our Lagatha deck, and that was purely early game aggression. Agamemnon can be played in multiple ways, let's just say that. And his difficulty is easy, and he has some symbols here. There's a heroic intervention, playing cards onto empty lines. I'll describe what all these things are. So for those of you who are completely new to this game and don't know a thing that's happening, what Total War Elysium does is it takes certain generals or key characters from Total War game or Total War game eras. Some of them are not actually featured in the game, but they are covered in the same era. In the case of Agamemnon, he's going to be one of the Greek generals that are available to be played in the upcoming game Total War Troy. And he is going to be a general in this game as well. And as you can see from this card, this is his general card. The number here is his attack, and the number here is his health. And the description here, let's go over it. Last gasp. This is a mechanic in the game where if your general falls to 6 health or below, it will stop at 6 health, and for that turn you become unbreakable. You will not be able to get injured, and you will draw 2 cards. So this is a game mechanic that wants to prevent you from suffering through one turn KO type of situation where you have a chance to come back the very next turn. Aside from that, he has a special ability. Every general has last gasp. His special ability is whenever another ally is deployed on an empty line, this gains short range this turn. So by default, by the symbol here, he is a melee attacker. He will do 1 damage, and he needs to be in melee range. There are 2 lines in this game. So melee range means you're in the line next to them. You have to be in the front line to perform a melee attack. But for Agamemnon, who is historically famous for being a very good javelin thrower, if an ally is deployed in an empty line, so clearly not the line he's in, but if your other line is currently empty and you play an ally into that empty line, then all of a sudden Agamemnon's attack becomes short range, means he can attack over 1 line. This gives him the option of basically performing a range attack where you won't lose health because you'll be just dealing out your attack from range. This is a very interesting mechanic. We'll talk about this a bit more as we look at some of the cards that are introduced in this Troy update, because basically it's a Total War Troy update and we're getting a whole different faction. And this symbol here is the Troy faction symbol in this game here. And this card right next to it is what's called a signature card. Every general will have a signature card, and this card will be in your hand at the start of your turn no matter what. If you play the last turn, it will be refreshed. So this card is always available to you, and Voyage is the name of Agamemnon's card, and it's quite fitting because he did go on a 10-year voyage to revenge for his brother's loss of his brother's wife, to siege down the city of Troy. And for this card, we see here there is a new symbol here. This is a symbol of supplies. This is how much it costs to play this card, and fortunately this card is free to play. So it costs 0 to play. You can play this card every turn if you want, but you can only play this card once. It does refresh, but it refreshes on the next turn. And all this card does is move your general. Moving switches your lane. There is 2 lanes, as I mentioned earlier, so it allows you to shift where Agamemnon is. Perhaps he was on the front line acting sort of as a tank, and you want to shift him back, so you open up the line as empty to play some other cards. And once you do that, since it was empty, since you moved away, he gains short range, so he can throw his spear or javelin over your front line into attacking the enemy. So that's a quite nifty way to play this. There's a lot of other combos that you can use with this card, and because it's free, it's actually quite strong in my opinion, because you always have the ability to shift your character. You can obviously move your character manually, but all cards have only 1 action available for them per turn. So if you perform the move without using the card, you'll be using your 1 action. Thus, after you move, you can't attack. But in this case, if you use this card to move, you still have your 1 action afterward, so you can still perform your attack. That's pretty much it. I'm currently in the deck selection screen, so if we click confirm here, we can kind of see all the cards. So how this game works with all the different Total War factions is that, as you can see here, we have certain cards available to us. We have our faction unique cards, in this case this symbol demonstrating Troy cards, and we have all the ancient cards because we belong in a certain time period. They did mix a lot of different Total War franchises together. For example, Three Kingdom is also ancient, and for the medieval time, currently we only have the Vikings, which is from Thrones of Britannia. And then from the Empire period, we have Total War Napoleon, and we have Napoleon and Marie Antoinette. So we can't use any of those cards. We cannot use Three Kingdom cards, even though they're technically ancient cards, right? So there's faction unique cards, there's time period unique cards, and finally there's timeless cards. So timeless cards are shared between all the factions. So because we're constructing Agamemnon's deck here, we have available to us these 3 types of cards, and that will be applied to other generals as well. So right now, I'm just curious to look at all the new Troy cards, because that's what this Theorycraft is about, to see what was added to the game. So we click on Troy, and notice how I don't have any Troy cards, because it was just added in today. But in this game, you can use crafting materials to craft your cards. I'm not going to craft a deck right now, that's not the purpose. The purpose of this video is just to play around with some ideas. Eventually, we'll definitely be showcasing a full deck in action, but here we're just exploring what was added in the game. And in total there's 19 cards added in the game, and from the cost as well as the star symbol on the bottom, you can kind of judge their rarity. 1 star is common, costs you 50 materials to craft. 2 star is rare, it costs you 120 or uncommon. And there is the 400 cost, Cyclops here and Minotaur. So these 2 are the only 2 400 cost or epic 3-star creatures. And finally, we have 3 legendary cards in Hector, Achilles, and Citadel of Troy. And these cost 1,000 crafting material. And as you notice, I don't have 1,000, but I do have a lot of resources, so I can probably get more, which I intend to do. Been saving them up for Troy. And the card art is quite nice. It's not colored because I don't have the card, but you can imagine there's actually shared art, as in 2 cards completes a picture. You have the very defensive Hector. We can kind of look at his stat while we have this open. It's a legendary card, and they have a little description and the artist credit. He has stun, so anyone he attacks or damages will be stunned for the next turn. They cannot move, they cannot attack, they cannot do anything. Certain abilities are also turned off when you are stunned. And it says after an enemy attacks another ally in this line or on this line, this attacks it. So Hector plays into the same defensive archetype that he would be played in Total War Troy, the actual Total War Troy game. And he does the same thing in this game. So if you play him online with allies, if the enemy chooses to attack his allies, consider that Hector is very strong at 3 and 14, 3 damage, 14 health. Then let's say you attack the ally, Hector will still counterattack you and deal damage to you, stun you, and trade health with you, because it's not just he's a melee attacker. And this symbol here means he is a creature or a unit. And 9 here means that's the cost to summon him. The fancy borders to showcase that he's a legendary card. And the punishment for legendary card in a deck is that you can only ever use 1 copy of it per battle. So if I used it and it got killed, I cannot get this card back. There is a very interesting daybreak mechanic in the game that allows you to keep calling cards from reserve. It's a very interesting deck building style. I covered this all during the first embargo videos, and those are all linked in the description below, so if you want details on how this game actually works, definitely go check that out. But talking about art, so here's Hector, defensive Hector with his shield up, and right next to him is offensive Achilles on the same battlefield. You can't really see it, but there is actually artwork of this that's quite nice. So you have offensive Hector, 1 health, but 10 attack. Cost 10, also a unit. Whenever any ally is deployed on an empty line, this gains unbreakable until the end of the following turn. So not only your turn, but your opponent's turn as well, or else it's pointless because they will just somehow kill this 1 health creature. But in this case, you just have to keep making allies appear on empty lines, and Achilles will be invincible, just like in real life. Of course, he has Achilles heel, so there is something to mortally wound him when you don't have ally being played on empty line, for example. So that's quite key. Very interesting style, very expensive. Both of these legendary cards are not something I'm interested in. I think they have a lot of flavor in that they are kind of opposite of each other. One protects a whole line, other one depends on sending allies to an empty line so that he can become invincible. This card is the one that I'm most interested in discussing today. This is a Citadel of Troy. Notice how this symbol here is no longer a unit symbol. This is a structure symbol. Structures in the game are basically like walls in Magic the Gathering, where you can't attack with them, but they have stats. In this case, 5 attack, 15 defense. But because you have 2 lines on the board, you can place these on the front or back line, and on the front line, they act as a barrier to protect your back line. So you can place this on the front line, and this will act like a pure defensive unit. But there's a few cool things that this Citadel does. On Daybreak, which is every 7 turns in this game, all your structure attacks the enemy general. Because the game turns actually flow through this day-night cycle, similar to night battles in traditional Total War games. And at Daybreak, there's a trigger for a lot of cards. And this card triggers during Daybreak, where all your structures attack the enemy general. So all of a sudden, all your structure counterattacks and the damage pours on. And this is something that's very new to the game. Previously, structures were quite useful as, whether defensive buffs, shields, or maybe some utility. Now, for the first time, you can actually play an offensive structure deck thanks to cards like this. And there's going to be quite interesting utilizations of this card as we move forward and check out all the other Troy cards. So this is actually the legendary card that I'm looking forward to crafting the most. So hopefully I'll get my 1,000 crafting materials, and we'll definitely try to get this card. And because we have over 2,200 gems here, or premium currency, I'll be unlocking a legendary box at the end of this video. Hopefully we can pull this card. We'll do that together, see if I get lucky. And moving on to the slightly less rare card, let's take a look at the 2 epic cards. So first we have the Minotaur, beautiful art, and it looks like a very offensive, ramming type of character. The way it's portrayed in Total War Troy is using the history behind the myth. You just had these, giant bandits who wore bullheads to scare the enemy. And he has this line called Fast, and another line called Heroic. So both of these are abilities. We can kind of check them out here. Fast is basically allows you to take an action as soon as it's being played. Most cards, when you play them, needs 1 turn cooldown before they can do anything. But for fast cards, once you play them, they can attack. The second thing is Heroic. Heroic is the unique keyword for Troy, as you can see the Troy symbols in front of it. Only Troy cards have Heroic. There's not many Heroic cards, but Heroic cards does one thing. If you play the card on an empty line, this is a big theme with the Troy faction, playing cards on empty lines. If you play a card on empty line, this card will gain 3 attack, so you're paying 6 for a 7/5, which is probably if stat-wise it's pretty balanced, you can think about it. You're costing 6 to get 7-5, which average out to 6-6. You're paying for the stat, but you get fast, so immediate effect. And 7-5 is actually a very hard-hitting unit in the game, as you can see some of the lower tier unit. 7 attack is no joke, so this is definitely a very aggressive card. And I think another theme of the battering ram is that recently there was a change to a key building destruction card called the Sapper. The Sapper used to destroy structures immediately. It targets one structure when it's played and it just bombs the whole building down. It has been nerfed to only deal 6 damage to buildings in order to only kill off certain early game buildings and leave some of the late game buildings just injured. And this is actually a big buff to all structure decks. And since Troy focused on structure, it's no surprise they put in this nerf and this buff at the same time during this Troy launch. But Minotaur with this battering ram has 7 attack, which is 1 more than the 6. So I guess this could be, your secret weapons to destroy those pesky 7 structures there. So just a thought. And the cousin here, the Cyclops, also the truth behind the myth type approach. You have the baby dwarf elephant skull wearing humans, and the baby dwarf elephants have very close eye sockets, so it links together on the skull, looking like a Cyclops. This unit is a 2/9 unit, costs 8. At the end of your turn, this deals its damage to a random enemy unit or structure. So this is kind of like a mobile artillery in a sense. You can put it on the front line, it can perform its regular melee attack, or it can even hide it on the back line, and every end turn, or your end turn, it will deal its attack damage that could be buffed potentially to all enemy, or potentially all enemy units or structure randomly. I feel like it's quite strong. 8 cost is a little prohibitive, but maybe it can work together in some sort of deck. I think it has potential. Whereas Minotaur, I feel like it's probably more fitting for like an early aggression deck, which isn't what Troy is about, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Right now, my entire mentality is stuck on structures. And speaking of structures, let's take a look at some other card in this section here. So this one costs 120. It's a uncommon 2-star card. Mycenaean Chariots. You have flanking. Flanking allows you to bypass the front line if you're also on the front line. So you can kind of skip behind the enemy front line to attack the rear, but only the 2 leftmost and rightmost unit on the back line. So it's still a real flank. You can't just suddenly appear in the center of the back line. That's not how flanking works. So there's a lot of Total War aspects to this game in terms of how it's played out as a card game. And here, if you play this card alone on a line, heroic triggers, and you get to deploy 2 archers, which are long-range units that are 1/2. So it's a lot of value, right? You're paying 5 for 3/3. Yes, there's flanking, but flanking is not a big stat. It's not like fast, because fast means you're guaranteed to deal damage. If you just have flanking, you play it on the field and someone kill you, you paid 5 for 3/3, and you trade it away and it's gone. Here, you're actually paying 5 to get a 5/7 in 3 bodies. And these have long range. Long range allows them to shoot to anywhere on the map, basically 2 lanes, because there's only 2 lines on the enemy line anyways. So these guys will be able to hit the back line even if they're standing on your back line. So they're quite useful. And this basically deploys 2. I'm assuming this is most optimally played on the back line, because I don't know if you want your archers on the front line. One thing about range unit is if they get attacked, they do not counterattack back. So if they get attacked in the game, let's say this unit get attacked, it will always trade the 3 damage back to its attacker. But when a range unit gets attacked, the 1 damage is kind of negated. So this is an interesting card. I think it has potential. I have thought from the beginning that you could definitely play a range deck with the Troy faction because of how Heroic work. Because Heroic wants you to keep 1 line empty and 1 line full. So the line that you kind of want to keep empty, I'm assuming, is going to be either your backline or front line, and this is a kind of a backline empty type of archetype kind of card. You keep the front line stacked with units, play this on the back, move this forward later, have these cards shoot from this. Pretty good value, interesting card. I'm not sure if I'm going to favor this that much because I feel like the structure or pure structure archetype is much better, and when you're playing pure structures, you're going to have a lot of structures on your backline as well. So might not focus too hard on this heroic bonus. And speaking of structures, we've been talking about it so much. Let's talk about the Trojan Wall. This wall kept the Greeks out for 10 years, and this wall is very, very strong in the game by having 10 health. I don't know if it's designed on purpose that way, but it's very fitting. And its 5 cost structure means it cannot attack unless it has range. Structures, when ranged, can't attack the enemy. So, this unit has long range in your turn. This is very key. It just not only has range, but only in your turn. And that's key because if you put this on the front line or even the back line, if you attack during your turn, that's totally normal. But during the enemy turn, they attack your wall. If your wall is still ranged, they can't counterattack because we just mentioned that. But if they lose their long range during the enemy turn, whatever their attack power is, which can be buffed, there's so many structure buff cards in the Troy faction that it totally changes the game. Then it can be a defensive threat. So in both aspects, you get the best of both worlds by playing the Trojan Wall. Very interesting card. Definitely the first one I'm going to try to get. It is a 1-star common card, so it's kind of a wasteful to craft it because the way the game works is the standard currency or gold can purchase card packs, and those packs only have common and uncommon cards. You can never pull up epic or legendary from those packs. You can only pull these from premium currency cards, which you can get from achievements, or once the game launches, you can actually spend real world money to buy these premium currency, like most games. And then you can, buy packs to get cards. Well, for us who are doing the closed beta testing, there is no real currency. So we only can get this from achievements and saving these up for basically buying different generals to play, or in this case, the general is offered to us for free if we get 10 victories, which I did today. And we can use this then to buy legendary packs and hopefully get some nice Troy legendary or epic cards. So we looked at Trojan Wall. Let's just go in order. Funeral games, we have deploy 2 chariots. This right here, this symbol, the exclamation mark, is called an event. Think of this as a spell. So this is a 9-cost spell that will launch 2 chariots in the line you play the spell at. And if you got a heroic, you also draw 2 cards. That's a ton of value because, as you can see, chariot units, the 2 chariot you summon, are 6-cost units. They are 4/4, flanking, plus 1 action. Plus 1 action means, like it says, it can take 2 action per turn. It's like a double attack. You can have this attack 2 separate times, or you have this move once, attack once, or some sort of combination. Move twice if you want, even though that's not very optimum. But basically you're getting a lot of value, especially if you can trigger heroic. You get your 2 chariots on an empty lane. These are pretty decently statted. A lot of the removal cards in the game deal about 3 damage, so having 4 health is actually quite nice. And flanking is good because you can go around people's walls. And draw 2 cards have immense value as well. But 9 cost is quite high, so not sure if this fits in every deck. And moving down the cost, everything as you can see, it's ordered by cost. We have the Pythian Champion. So this costs 2 less when you're outnumbered, so I guess this means when you have less unit than the enemy. It's not very clear. I don't know if structures count, but I guess you have to play to figure it out. 6 for 5/5, but technically 4 for 5/5 situationally, so you can kind of judge the value there. Nothing too crazy here. The Ithacan Ambusher, 4, Camouflage. Camouflage is another aspect of the game where if you don't move or attack, you stay hidden. So in this case, you are guaranteed to have this card safe unless the enemy have a target this entire line type of spell or damage, because units can't attack it because they can't see it, and single target spells can't target it because they can't see it. So that's what Camouflage does. That's why having Camouflage kind of reduce its total stat. You're paying 4 for 2/3. And if you get a heroic trigger off this, this deals 3 damage to a random enemy unit or structure. So kind of like a ambush attack if you have this out on the front or back. Very useful, I think. The ping damage is very high. Potentially, if you ever decide to construct a early game or just a good value type of Troy deck, this could potentially fit. War Maiden, heroic, getting a shield. So once again, shield are basically a one-time defensive bonus that you gain. You can absorb as much damage as you can, but only once. So if you get hit by 1 damage, the shield's gone. If you get hit by 10 damage, the shield is gone. So obviously, against stronger foes, the shield's very, very nice. It's a 4/2, low health, relies on the shield for survival, and pretty good value. 3 cost for this, and high damage. Moving on to the last 8 cards here, we have Trojan Defenders. These guys have stun, 1/4. Whenever you deploy a structure, this gains short range this turn. So these are the guys on the wall throwing rocks at you, and they can only have range when you play a structure on that turn. So this fits very nicely with a structured deck, but even if you don't play structure, these are good melee attackers. 1/4, stun is very valuable, 4 health. These archetype I quite like, having a high health, low damage stun target makes a lot of sense. Alright, here we go. Shrine of Hephaestus. And this is the card that makes all the structures work. Because most structures in the game are walls, like I said before, previously, like say in the ancient cards and the timeless cards, the ones that are shared with the Trojan cards. And this card gives them damage because all other structures on this line has +2 attack. Other structures, so this is not included. And because this is only an uncommon card, you can actually pull multiple copies of this card from your deck. So this can stack. Very high potential here. So this is the card that's going to end up boosting your Trojan Wall to have 3 or 5 range attack during your turn. Very, very useful. Bronze-cladded Chargers, +1 action, 2/4 for 3. So basically you're gaining a pretty good value card by having extra action. But for melee attackers, extra action's not worth that much in my opinion because you are trading your health each time you attack. So even if you get 2 actions, you're still restricted by how much health you have, versus there's a Longbowman in the game that has 2 action. Very strong because you have long range and you can stand in the back and just keep sniping people. But anyhow, we have the Elysium Stonemasons. These are another structure buffing card. So whenever you deploy a structure on this line, give it +2/+2. This is a permanent buff. So even if this card dies, this buff stays on the structure. And this card is probably very central to any structure deck as well. And you want to play this, dump structures on this lane, and they all become very strong. Keep him safe. And then we have Greek Militia. This is a typical 2-cost 2/2 unit, but it has heroic, means you can summon this on an empty line, and this will deploy another Greek Militia. So 2 for 2/2, 2/2, 2 for 2/2. That's what this card is. Then we have Divine Intervention. So give a targeted ally unbreakable until the end of the following turn. So this is also using kind of the Trojan War storyline. Often you have a Trojan prince or dueling with a Greek warrior, and many of them are children of the gods or goddesses, and when they're losing, you can have some sort of divine intervention that whisks them away, like Paris was whisked away to the bedside of Helen during his duel with Menelaus. Similar idea, you get unbreakable, but unbreakable is even better than being whisked away because you are basically taking no damage, but you still deal your damage to the enemy until the end of the following turn. So it makes you an unbreakable wall. Enemy is not going to want to attack you because it's suicidal. Man the Wall, a spell card, costs 1. Give target friendly structure short range. Draw a card. Very high value. Draw a card for 1 is really, really, really good. And giving a structure short range is also really good. The only reason why this is so low cost is you can't use this if you don't have a structure, right? The condition is you must have a structure to use this card, or else this is just too broken, because at worst is draw a card. But in this case, you need a structure to be able to use this. But you can definitely find some structures. Even if you have a 0 attack structure, just use this to draw a card when you need to. It's a good cycle card. And then lastly, we have the Achaean Bronze Workers. This is gives another ally that's deployed on empty line, give it 1 attack. So this guy sits in your back line, and then any single heroic unit you're dumping in the front, this gives it +1 attack. Pretty nifty card. Very interesting stat. I don't know if this is actually going to be a very useful card. Maybe I could be wrong. I feel like cards like this, right now, just not fitting into my imagined structure playstyle, but that's probably just me. So that's all 19 Troy cards, and if you want to add up the cost, you have 3 legendary, 3,000 crafting materials, You have 2 epic, another 800, and there's 3 uncommon, so 360 there, so we're at 4,160. And finally there is 11 common cards, so another 550 on top of that, so we're at 4,710, I believe. It's a lot of crafting material, but you can pull a lot of these cards, especially having 11 common and 3 uncommon. Those you can just patiently wait to pull from regular card packs. And so the real cost is basically 3,800 crafting materials. And I don't think Achilles that valid. I don't know if this can be played, this can be sustained to keep him safe all the time. And 10 cost. The 10 cost is what's killing it, in my opinion. But anyhow, we're going to see a lot of interesting changes. So that's all the Troy cards. Let's take this filter off. We're going to look at all the cards, and what we're going to do is we're going to search up all the structure cards, because we've been talking a lot about structure, and the point of the theory crafting episode is to talk about how to make certain decks, right? So these are all the structured cards I have, and if we take a look at the ones I don't have, most of these are Troy cards, except for this one. This card's also newly added. So except for the new cards, I have all the old structure cards. But this new card is called Demolition. It's added along the Troy patch, and what it does is it destroys a target friendly structure, so your structure, and deal the damage equal to its supply cost to all enemy. So it's a huge board clear by using your own structure. Very interesting card. I mean, clearly if you use it on the Citadel Troy, blow up your own Citadel, that's 10 damage to all enemy. That essentially wipe everyone out. Very, very strong. And that's the only thing we need to mention here. It's a timeless card, so you can probably work with other structure-focused decks. It used to be a lot of defensive structure-focused decks, but this is quite interesting. So leaving this, let's look at all the structure-related cards as well as structure cards, because you see some of them are not structure cards, but they have some aspect that relates them to structure. So let's start here on the Sapper, because the Sapper received the biggest change. Sappers now deals, or herald means what they do when they are summoned, deal 6 damage to a target enemy structure. Used to be destroy a target enemy structure. So now the Sapper can only kill Campfire, High Ridge, Open Plains, Gladiatorial Arena, and the Palisades that are created from this event card. You can create 2 of these with this event card. And Vineyard, which got a big change too. Stone Bridge, which I feel like it's what its target is. This is the breaking point. Stone Bridge got a buff. It used to be 5 cost, now it's 4 cost. And to counteract that, I think they lower the cost of Sappers, made him a little weaker, and then changed his damage output. But those are the cards you can kill with the Sapper. A lot of the Troy cards, you can kill the Shrine. That's actually pretty key. But you can't kill the Shrine if you got the Mason on it. It becomes 2/7. So there's that. You cannot destroy the wall, and you can't touch the Citadel. So Sapper is going to have trouble there. Because he has trouble, our idea of using this structure deck is going to work. So Gladiatorial Arena definitely could work. Units on this line get +1/+1. This will be kind of a structure plus range focused deck where you have a back line with this card on it. It would just give +1/+1 to all the range units you have every daybreak. That's the idea I had before I saw all the cards. I basically just saw the Citadel Troy. I was like, okay, so you want your structure to deal damage to enemy general, but most structure have 0 damage. Which one don't have 0 damage? Well, Gladiatorial Arena has +3 damage. So maybe we just dump a lot of, castle walls in the front, put this guy in the back, and then once we play to late game, we dump our, Citadel Troy and have these guys go at it. But now that we have so many different buffs, this is not the card I'm focusing on. Campfire all of a sudden becomes really, really valuable. So Campfire costs 1/1/3. Structure means it can't actually attack with these stats. Whenever an ally moves next to this, restore 2 health to it. So right away, this plays into 2 different aspects of Troy cards. One, Troy cards needs, right now we're talking about structure focus. And 2, our general, Agamemnon, has a Voyage as his passive card. That's a free move. So we can have him freely move to the back line every turn to get +2 health. And if you have 2 of these placed correctly, you can have him move into the middle and +4 health. So this is quite useful. You can buff this to a 3/5 and, with the Elysium Stone Mason, I believe. So very useful card. I believe this is going to be central to all Troy decks. It's also a timeless card. I feel this is going to be a key player. Palisade's always been good. You get 2 of these, put them on the front. They slow down the enemy, especially if you can buff them now. And another thing about Campfire before we move on, because you want to keep triggering heroic cards, I'm guessing, because you want to have an empty lane. So the ones you trigger last turn are still going to be in that lane. So maybe you need them to come back to heal, and that way you also open up the lane. So another pretty interesting use. High Ridge has been a favorite of a lot of defensive decks, or just for value decks, because it gives all other units and structures plus 2 health. So that's great. You basically buff a lot of your structures beyond the kill point of the Sapper. Imagine multiple High Ridges on the same lane. It does stack. Open Plane, it's a nice deck for a lot of maneuver focused decks. In this case, it's actually really bad for Agamemnon because of the heroic mechanism. The way the code works, it will run the code from left to right on the lines. So if you want this to work correctly, you want it to be on the right side of your lane. The reason is, when you play a hero card into an empty lane, this moves the card. Any deploy card is moved, and it will move into the non-empty lane. And the trigger for the heroic will be turned off unless it was triggered before the open plane. So because the code goes left to right, if you play the card on the left of the open plane, it will still work, but it's just complicated. And plus, you don't want too much movement on your troops with this. So I feel like this is the card you don't need. You definitely need High Ridge. Castle Wall is kind of optional, I feel like. It's just a big stalling card, 0-9. If you could buff this, sure. Frontline buff, 2-11, drop it, the Stonemaker on the, or Stonemason on the second turn, Castle Wall on the third turn seems very deadly. 2-11 is no joke. I don't know how to remove that. This Sapper can't even remove it. Surround, deal damage to target unit or structure equal to the number of units you control. This is another card that could get popular with the rise of the structure deck as a counter, because you could spam a lot of units, a lot of cheap low level units, and then use your sheer number to break a big structure. But even then, I feel like a lot needs to be invested for this to work. So I don't know how useful this would be against structures. I already talked about Gladiator Arena and Sappers. Moving on, Vineyard got shifted. So previously Vineyard was a Daybreak card, where during the Daybreak you get this Harvest, and you get 3 supply catches, which are basically 0 cost 1 supply event cards. Now they shifted it so that every end of your turn you get 1 of these. So kind of made this into a steady card instead of like a big burst that you can play on the turn right before Daybreak to guarantee you 3 supply catches. Now you're kind of putting it at risk for longer periods. But in the case of the Troy decks, because you can buff structures and you have so many key structures that people need to destroy, this card is going to come out ahead. And you can have this for a long time if you buff this correctly and have a nice steady supply cache to use. You gain advantage by having more supplies every turn than the enemy. Garrison, another very iconic card for any structure deck. This was introduced long ago. This card automatically has Unbreakable as long as there's an adjacent structure. Very, very powerful card. It can be used multiple ways. Let's say we are on the front line dealing melee attack, which is what this card is. It's a melee attacker. 4-1. You play this card next to a structure. It becomes unbreakable, so you can just deal 4 damage all the time to people, no damage back. But if the structure gets destroyed, easily killed. Or you can play this on the back line. We mentioned how flanking works, how enemy cavalry can break through your front line, all your walls, and attack your back line. But what if your back line has, let's say, this card on the left and on the right, and structures on its right and its left, meaning that you have 2 unbreakable cards guarding your left and right flank. Means the enemy cavalry will just be hitting into a rock, taking 4 damage and dealing 0, and being completely useless. So in a sense, this is actually very powerful. So a lot of potential here. Maybe a Garrison Children Wall combo. Imagine, some pike and shot joining in the Children Wall defense effort. Very interesting. Regime Change. This is the card I believe that would be starting to be included in all decks because of the introduction of structure decks. This has always been here. It reduces all units and structures to 1 health. This includes your unit and your structures. The reason why I think this card will be included is because there's currently not many good ways to take down structures, especially big structures. And this is one way. You can easily use this, and there's a lot of cards that deal 1 damage to the whole board or whole lane and wipe out the enemy. You will always hurt yourself too, as you can see. But this is a good, changing of the tide card when you don't have a board left and you just need to wipe out the enemy. This is kind of the way to go. And it's also low cost, allows a lot of combos. Stonebridge was recently buffed. It went from 5 cost to 4 cost. Now it just basically makes your unit 2 less to summon. We mentioned this is vulnerable to sappers still, but overall very high value because you can get all your cards 2 cheaper, at least your unit cards 2 cheaper. You can send out a lot more force. Lastly, Silk Road. This is a ancient era structure card. At the start of your turn, draw additional card. Whenever you play a card, gain a supply. So it kind of reflects the trade aspect. Whenever you draw a card, at the start of your turn, you draw extra cards. You draw 2 cards at the start of your turn, and then whenever you play a card, you gain a supply for playing the card. So every card is essentially 1 discounted, but it's not a direct discount. You get it after you play the card. So if you say you have 2 supplies and you're trying to play a 3 cost card, you can't do that. But if you want to play like a 2 cost card and 1 cost card, you can do that. You can play the 2 first, you get 1 supply for that. You play the 1, you still get another supply for that. So that's how this card works. It's an interesting card. I always felt this is kind of a win more card. By the time you have the leisure to play a 7 cost 0/8 structure card, you pretty much already won. But this ensures that by giving you a constant supply of cards as well as more supplies when you play cards. But it's going to be interesting because you can now buff structures. So this can become a 2/10 right when it gets played, and then put a couple shrines around it. It becomes 4, 8, 8/10. All very impressive stats. So that's all the structure cards. That's kind of what I wanted to focus this Theorycraft on. I'm going to be opening packs now. Hopefully we get a couple cards, and then eventually that will lead to an actual deck. And once we have the deck, we'll showcase that in some sort of gameplay in another video. So let's discard this change. Before we open packs, there is one last thing I need to mention. Aside from Agamemnon joining us, Priam is going to join us too. King Priam will be the next general added. There will be basically 2 Total War Troy related general here. And if you guys are curious, we have 3 Kingdoms, Cao Cao, Dong Zhuo, Sun Ren. You have 2 medieval from Thrones, both Vikings, Lagatha and Guthrum, and 2 Empire, Marie Antoinette and Napoleon, both from, he's from Total War Napoleon, she's from the same era. So not everyone is from the games exactly, but here King Priam is not playable in Total War Troy, but he is going to be playable in Total War Elysium. And here we have a general. They actually have all the stats, so we can talk about this real quick. First, the art is pretty much amazing. I really wish he will become playable in the game, maybe a future DLC, since the pipeline for Total War Troy seems quite promising as well. He has last gasp like all generals. He's a 0 attacker general, so no offense. He gets just keep getting attacked, and also very low health, so a fragile old man. He has a daybreak mechanic where it will randomly add the Alphabus, Troilus, and Cassandra into his hand. These are his 3 kids. King Priam, for those of you who don't know, had a ton of kids according to ancient legends. He had a wife, Hecuba, and many concubines, so they're not all from his wife. I think his wife and him had 5 or 5 sons, maybe more daughters. Yeah, I think 5 sons. And he had a total of 68 sons and 18 daughters if you combine the various texts, because basically like from the Iliad, Homer mentions like 19 sons, and from other sources you get more kids, and eventually it adds up to about 68 sons and 18 daughters, I think, roughly around there. Lots of kids. But these 3 are quite famous, so that's why they're included. So Cassandra is famous for being blessed by the god to always being able to predict the future. But at the same time, to receive this gift, she is cursed, as no one will believe what she predicts. So this is a curse of knowing, but being unable to convince anyone that it's going to be true. And I believe there's a syndrome like this that's named after her, but I'm not quite sure about that psychology term. But in the game here, she's going to be a 1/3 legendary card, cost 1. All 3 of these cost 1. And at the end of your turn, draw a card. Quite useful. You play it on the back line, I'm assuming, so that you can always draw extra card. But at the end of the turn, it's interesting because you can't utilize that draw during your turn. You have to end your turn to get that draw. So basically, you can think of it receiving an extra draw at the beginning of your next turn. That's probably a better way to think about it. But there's a lot of interplays in the game. There's a Saboteur card that will damage you based on how many cards you have in your hand. So potentially this is worse than drawing 2 cards at the beginning of your turn, because by drawing that 1 extra during the in-between time period, you can take potentially 1 more damage. Troilus is the youngest son of King Priam, I believe. And he was basically part of a prophecy that, if you look at his name, represents, I think, Troilus and Ilius, which is the 2 founders of the city of Troy. So his fate is tied to the city of Troy. If he dies, the city will fall. That was the prophecy. And the Greeks know this prophecy too. So the guy behind him you see in the artwork is actually Achilles. And for those of you who have no idea about the history, but maybe have seen the movie, the one with Brad Pitt playing as Achilles, you remember that he attacked a temple very early on when they landed on the beach. And that temple was where Troilus was killed. Troilus and one of his sisters wanted to pray to, I believe, Apollo. So they rode out of the city to a temple that's outside the city to pray. And they bumped into the Greeks' forces, and knowing the prophecy, Achilles here brutally murders Troilus at the temple. That's why they have an altar in front of him. This is the moment before his death. And his special ability there says Shatter. Shatter is an ability that triggers when you die. So that's very fitting. So when he dies, he stuns every enemy. So that's kind of where we get this story here. And the Alphobius, I think that's how you pronounce him. He is pretty much the 3rd best warrior, maybe the 2nd best. I don't know how you want to classify Paris. Paris is not really a warrior. Paris is this archer. He's kind of presented as this sneaky archer, no honor, ran away from his duels, lost his duels, the god intervened. But basically Paris was this exiled prince because there was this prophecy saying how Paris will bring doom to Troy. So instead of killing him, which the king and the queen didn't want to do, they gave him to a shepherd to kill, but the shepherd couldn't do it either. And the shepherd brought him back, and they basically decided that, let's raise him as a shepherd's son, sparing him. But he eventually became this beautiful young man, and very fair too. So that's why he was picked by the god Zeus to judge the beauty between the 3 goddesses, which led to Helen being taken away. We'll talk all about this when we play Total War Troy. But anyways, Deiphobus, on the other hand, is a legitimate prince of Troy. He is Hector's younger brother, I believe. He is not as skilled as Hector, but he is very capable. I think he killed about 4 named Greek heroes during the whole conflict. And when Paris eventually died, and that was before the fall of Troy, he temporarily married Helen. Right? Helen was passed along quite a bit. It's not very pure love as we tend to believe it, but he married Helen for a bit. Helen didn't love him at all, and eventually he was killed as well. Basically all of Priam's children were killed during this conflict. So these 3 are represented here as Priam's kind of special cards. I guess you get 1 copy of each because they are legendary. There's only 1 copy that exists per battle. So for 3 daybreaks, the old man has to last through 21 turns to get all 3 of these cards. And they will help him, I guess. It's basically free cards added to your deck. And you get 1 cost 5/4, 1 cost 2/2, 1 cost 1/3, all with special effects. The 5/4 does not, but 5/4 for 1 cost is kind of insane value. So if you draw this first on your first daybreak, it's going to be a lot better than drawing on your 3rd daybreak, because your supply goes up every turn. By the time it's your turn 21, 5/4 isn't going to cut it, even if it's 1 cost. So that's kind of what we got to look at. And his unique signature card, every general have one of these, is called Desperate Defense. Gives a target ally +2/+2 until the end of the following turn. Stun it. Stun means you're stunning your own unit. They cannot move, they cannot attack, but they can defend. If they get attacked, they still counterattack. And it says ally. So ally means structures and units. So this is kind of also playing to a very pure defensive deck, protecting the old king. Could be a very interesting strategy. I believe Agamemnon could probably build a very early game damage focused deck, but Priam probably cannot. unless you're counting on drawing your very strong sun every single time. So that's kind of the idea here. You can basically set up a wall with a unit, give it +2/+2, temporarily stunning it. Stunning a structure, doesn't hurt it. So that's kind of the idea. Alrighty. So let's go open some packs. That's the fun stuff. I'm sure everyone's waiting for that. Go to the store. So as you can see, the cost structure, battle packs, let's open one of these first just as an example. So they always contain 2 rare and 4 commons. So 1-star, 2-star, and 20 crafting materials. And if you get duplicates, because in this game you can only have 1 copy of each card, so if you get duplicate cards, they will become crafting materials. So let's first purchase this. You get gold by playing the game, essentially leveling up. So as you can see, we do have a lot of redundant cards. In this case, we have most of the common, and even the rare ones, I believe we have most of them as well. So it translates to about 140 crafting material if you have the whole thing as duplicates, which we do. No surprise. But if you think about it, 140 crafting material is about 1/7 of a legendary. So in a sense, every 7 packs you open, you have enough to craft your own legendary. So it's not that bad. I think cost structure wise, I've seen way worse from a lot of card games. And all these numbers are obviously subject to change before the real launch. We're still in beta. And now we're going to purchase one of these legendary battle pack. As you can see, these contain 350 materials automatically, 12 common cards, 8 rare, 2 epic, 1 legendary. So pretty rewarding here. And other ways you can spend your precious gems is on generals. I have unlocked all of these already, so we don't need to actually spend any of them. We're just going to be checking our luck here. I'm hoping for a lot of Troy cards, so fingers crossed. Or else we have to craft everything. We got 1. Okay, we got 1 out of the 11. Ooh, we got the shrine. All right, that's the card that's the card we need out of the 3. Children Wall as well. We gotta craft a few of them, I guess. Oh, this is the worst. You get 2 epic. You get a copy of the same epic. So this is unfortunate, but we do get a lot of crafting material for that. It does cost 400 to craft. All the crafting materials 1/4 the cost. That's kind of the math behind it. And counterattack, make every friendly unit's attack equal to its health. It's a medieval card. This is very good for Guthrum decks. Guthrum runs a lot of pikemen, basically high health, low attack cards, and you can buff attacks with his signature card. And the whole idea between this is all of a sudden all your high health cards become high attack, high health cards at the same time, and counterattacks essentially. Maybe I'll try to make a deck from this. Legendary card, please. Okay, it's not a duplicate, it's not a Troy card, it is Old Guard from Empire, so this is a Napoleon card. Whenever enemy attacks your general, this attacks it, has +2/+2 if you have a plan card in hand. So it's an 8 cost, most likely you have a plan card in hand. By the time you have 8 costs, Napoleons have a lot of plan cards. So you're looking at an 8/10, and it shields your general because the enemy general is not going to be attacking your general. If you can counterattack with 8 damage on top of that to their general, that's pretty insane. High value card. I don't know how to incorporate this into a deck yet. A lot of my Napoleon decks are mainly focused on artilleries, but this could work. Alright, so we didn't get what we came after, but we did get a lot of crafting material. We can check it out from the summary page. Let's see, where is the... There we go. We got 840 crafting material, and I think I had about 300-400 before we started. And a few new cards, 2 Greek cards, very sad. Alright, so this is going to wrap up our video. It's rather long because we're introducing a whole new faction. Future episodes of this, Theorycraft Thursday will be more focused on one thing. For example, we might be showcasing a certain card and how to build a deck around it, or maybe talking one of our decks. But I think a lot of the game design question of saying, like, say, we're playing as Agamemnon, how to use his signature card effectively. How to use Cao Cao's signature card effectively. What type of deck should you build to make use of this card more? So that's kind of discussion I want to have with this type of episodes. So I hope you enjoyed this first one, and see you guys next time. Bye!